Transformers 2007, directed by Michael Bay, was a huge milestone for the Transformers franchise, being the first time all of our famous characters would be in live action. And while the lineup that we got for the movie was pretty solid in their own right, like Michael Bay said in this particular interview,
I actually wanted more robots than we had, but it just ultimately got too expensive.
there was supposed to be way more Transformers than we actually got to see on screen. And me being personally interested in this topic, and now that I've already covered Arcee, one of my favorite Transformers, I want to cover the rest of the Transformers that were cut from the 2007 film. So in this video, I'm going to be covering all of the mysterious lost and cut Transformers from the 2007 film, Transformers. Let's get into it. Prowl is one of the original Autobots in the original lineup of the G1 series, and actually in the early drafts of the script for the 2007 film, he would actually make an appearance. But sadly, Prowl as a character was cut out of the future drafts of the screenplay for the 2007 film. Now, one thing to note before I continue with Prowl is that one of the things with the development of the first Transformers film is that all of the Transformers except the main ones like Optimus Prime or Bumblebee were always in flux and always changing. They would usually change per draft, per Spielberg or Bay's recommendations, and with that out the way, this is the reason why that Prowl was cut from the film at the end of the day. He was simply reworked into other characters, and first being Soundwave to eventually being Barricade, all of these having their famous police car alt modes. Another reason why he was cut from the film was simply that the writers felt that a Decepticon would fit the role of a police car alt mode better than Prowl did, which I guess I can personally understand, but also Prowl is just such a cool character and he's known for his police car alt mode. Luckily, Prowl would appear in the comic books like Transformers Defiance, usually as a side character in the Bayverse, but never actually officially on screen in any of the films, which is a shame, and hopefully future Transformer films will include him. Another Autobot that was cut from the first film was Hot Rod, one of the more popular Transformers of the old G1 era, having his time to shine in Transformers the movie. Once again, in the early drafts of the film, he was part of the original lineup of the Autobots, and really not much is known what he was actually going to do in the film, or actually the reason why he was cut. But as later drafts of the story were turned in by the writers, he was cut from the film. It seemed to me, in my opinion, he was replaced by Jazz in the later drafts of the story, but ultimately at the end of the day, he was cut from the 2007 film. Now, as we all know, he would actually make his live-action appearance in the 5th Bay film, Transformers The Last Night, with a very annoying French accent and not at all like the original Hot Rod.
Does he have to loom like that?
Bonjour, chérie. Je m'appelle Hot Rod.
That's what?
Hot Rod.
That's red?
Hot Rod.
Hot Rod.
That's what?
Regardless though, hopefully future appearances will be much more faithful to the character. Soundwave is the third bot that was cut from the film, and he actually has a very interesting story of why he was cut from the film and his journey to the big screen as a whole. This is because the screenwriters of the 2007 film, Arcee and Kurtzman, really just liked him as a character and tried to make multiple attempts to get him into the original 2007 film, but at the end of the day was ultimately cut from the final product. The first attempt to get Soundwave into the 2007 film was originally he was going to take the role of Blackout in the final film, with everything including his helicopter mode and also Ravage as his secondary little minion. But Hasbro rejected this version of the character as they wanted Soundwave's alt mode to actually have something to do with music, which naturally makes sense since, well, you know, his name is Soundwave. Also, a quick side note, Blackout as a character as we know him today actually had multiple names originally before becoming the character we know. First being Vortex, then Soundwave of course, and then Grimlock weirdly, Devastator, and then Incinerator. And then finally becoming Blackout as we know him today, which is just kind of a little interesting side fact. Regardless though, the second attempt to get Soundwave into the feature film was first being the portable stereo that we see in the final film, with also the ability to size shift into a Humvee in the original draft of the story. This idea was scrapped as they felt that this version just didn't do Soundwave as a character justice, and plus Hasbro wasn't really keen on the idea to begin with. So just like that, Soundwave was cut from the film and saved for future sequels. And eventually the alt mode of the Humvee was changed into a police cruiser to eventually turning into the character Barricade that we know today. Also, the portable stereo concept that I mentioned earlier was kept and decided to change into an original character, with original names that are so great such as Boombot and then the Soundbite. Jesus Christ, these names, bro.
I know, man, if you seen this shit.
To finally his name being changed to Frenzy and being the weird Decepticon that we know of him today in the final film.
And we knew we had to have someone kind of related to Soundwave. Frenzy's in there as kind of a representative of that.
And as we all know, Soundwave did get the chance to appear in the live-action films, first in Revenge of the Fallen as an orbiting satellite, and then as a Mercedes in Dark of the Moon, where he would sadly die off. Personally, as a concept, I am glad that he was saved for the future sequels, as the concepts that were discussed for the first film just really kind of sound lame and don't really sound like Soundwave at all personally. Ravage, one of the personal minions of Soundwave, was also cut from the 2007 film, originally appearing when Soundwave was originally the helicopter form in the earlier versions of the 2007 film story. His role was supposed to be just like Scorponok in the final film, to come off Soundwave and attack the humans just like we see in the final film. But in this version, it was a jungle instead of the desert the humans were running into. And just like the final film, Ravage will have to get into a fierce firefight with the humans to eventually having to retreat, just like in the final film. Now, obviously, why was Ravage cut from the film? Well, it seems pretty obvious, as Soundwave was cut from the original 2007 film, and just naturally, Ravage went alongside this change as well. It just wouldn't feel right to have Blackout alongside Ravage together. So in later drafts of the story, he was eventually changed into Scorponok, the violent scorpion we would see in the film. I personally like the idea of Ravage coming in the old 2007 film alongside Soundwave sometimes, but I understand why he was cut, as once again it just doesn't make sense for him not to appear with his brother in Soundwave. Regardless though, Ravage still got to make his live action appearance in the sequel Revenge of the Fallen alongside Soundwave. Ravage would appear in the film, first stealing the fragment of the Allspark and then getting killed later on in the film. Overall, I think I'm glad that he got cut, but I wish that he would have done more in Revenge of the Fallen though. Then we come to Shockwave, which is personally in my top 5 Decepticons list. He was actually originally supposed to be part of the Decepticon lineup in the 2007 film. He was just one of the original and many names for the character that would eventually be known as Blackout in the final film. Now, the reason why he was cut from the final film still remains a mystery. Maybe Hasbro didn't feel like the role that Blackout was in the story would be a right fit for Shockwave, but I honestly don't know why he was cut. Weirdly though, in the 2007 movie tie-in game for the 2007 film, Transformers the video game, Shockwave actually does appear in the campaign, showing up in the town Tranquility to fight Optimus Prime and prevent him from rescuing Bumblebee, who was just captured by Sector 7. I honestly do like his design in the game, personally feeling much more closer to the G1 aesthetic than Dark of the Moon's design did. And also, weird fact, Shockwave is actually a triple changer in this game, with his first alt mode being an AH-64 Apache helicopter, showing some of the influences from Blackout, and also his second alt mode being a giant howitzer artillery cannon. I honestly love the idea of Shockwave being a triple changer, and the fact that he's so big compared to Optimus Prime was also great as well. Shockwave would also appear in other versions of the movie tie-in games, for example in the PSP version, sporting a design that is weirdly different from the one that we got in the main Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 version. He would also appear in many of the movie tie-in comic books for the Bayverse, and also having a role in the Dark of the Moon video game. And of course, officially, he would eventually make his appearance in Dark of the Moon the movie as well. Personally, I feel like Shockwave would have probably been a nice addition to the 2007 film, but that film also had a lot going on, so I'm not sure if his appearance would have actually worked. But still, it's an interesting fact. Also, other characters that were considered for the 2007 film include Wheeljack and Ultra Magnus. The former did actually make his appearance in Dark of the Moon, with a design that I'm personally not the biggest fan of, but still at the end of the day made his appearance. And finally, the last Transformer that is known that was cut from the 2007 film was Wreckage, or aka Striker. Wreckage is a forgotten Decepticon that nobody remembers, but was actually supposed to be part of the original lineup for the Decepticons in the 2007 film. And similar to Arcee, also made his way to a lot of other media as well, having his own action figure and making multiple appearances in the comic books. Being shown first at a concept art showcase at the BotCon 2007 convention, in this concept art, as you can see, his alt mode is an M11126 Striker Infantry Carrier Assault Vehicle. Also, as you can see in this piece of concept art, it also shows his name as Striker. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is he called Striker instead of Wreckage? Well, this is because in concept art, if artist doesn't know the name of a character, he or she would normally name it after the vehicle of that particular character. So this is why the name Striker appears on the concept art. And also this also proves the fact that the bot himself wasn't really confirmed at any point in the original production. The mysterious Decepticon honestly looks pretty cool, but why was he cut from the final film? Well, actually no official reason was given for his disappearance or the reason why he was cut from the final film. But we can come together with some clues on why he was cut from the film. For example, one of the screenwriters of the 2007 film, Robert Arcee, when asked about Wreckage's disappearance in the final film, said he wasn't even in the first draft. So with this comment in mind, it's most likely suggested that Wreckage was probably brought up at some point in the production when it came up to coming up with the bots, and then it was simply scrapped for various reasons. Other hints that suggest why he was cut from the final film suggest that the budget for the Transformers simply could not fit Wreckage into it, and this was one of the reasons why he was cut for budgetary reasons. The lineup for the first film was already pricey, and they probably just simply didn't have the VFX budget to include Wreckage into the final film. This is also supported when Michael Bay stated that he actually wanted more Transformers for the first film, but once again didn't have the necessary budget to include them. So with all these clues being discovered, this seems to be the reason why this mysterious Decepticon was scrapped from the final film. Luckily though, Wreckage would still appear in other material for the Bayverse, really primarily appearing in the movie tie-in comic books, where he would land with the other Decepticons in Afghanistan in 2007, but that kind of retcons the movie prequel comic, but hey, continuity, who needs that, right? Where he would scan his alt mode as a Striker vehicle, and then eventually, after a massive struggle with the humans, would eventually get killed by an EMP and eventually die off. And this seems like the in-universe reason for why Wreckage actually doesn't appear in the 2007 film. He would also make other notable appearances like in the Reign of Starscream comic which took place after the first movie, and also in other Flash games like the Old Flight of Bumblebee and the Allspark Highway Flash game. Honestly, after reading all of the comic books that involve him and also seeing all of the designs that feature in the concept art, I honestly think that this bot would have been pretty cool if they introduced him in the first movie, but I also understand why he was cut. Overall, that was the rest of the lost or cut Transformers for the first 2007 film that I could find. If any of these interested you, please let me know which ones, and also if I missed any, please let me know. And with that all being said, I will see y'all later. Please comment, like, subscribe, and overall just have a great day. Peace.
No, literally, why do you have to be like that? Pourquoi?
Genius.